nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let me see if I get this right about broadcasting. This meeting is being televised by Chelmsford Telemedia. If there's anybody else in the room who is also televising, please make it known at this time. And given we only have one other person in the room, I doubt that that's the case, but okay. Next item, approval of minutes. Colleen provided us with a couple of minutes from the last meeting tonight, so let's hold those until next, unless anybody's read them in the 2 minutes that we've been here. I doubt that you have. We'll hold them until the next meeting. Did you find them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I, I've been asked by people that listen to us that we're not talking into the microphones properly and nobody can hear us at home.
They're directional, so you just have to speak towards it.
Yeah, I just thought we should realize
Okay.
that, because I didn't know it until last week.
Okay.
I can hear you, Mary.
You can hear me?
I have a question.
The key is whether they can hear me at home.
I'm hearing you on the
If it is,
speakers.
yes.
Just about the July 31st minutes, were we going to look at those and make corrections on the second page? Did anybody look at that? Ever, under John Edward comments?
Colleen and I exchanged some email, and Colleen
Yes.
came up with different wording, and I think it's fine.
Okay.
And even when I'm not here, I do watch, so sometimes I go ahead and make those corrections, but if you want to make sure that I did, that's fine by me. You can either email me or,
So is it the only change is the last sentence on the first paragraph on the second page?
There was a,
These are minutes we approved already?
No.
No, okay,
nope, these are the first two sets of, that aren't approved,
okay,
and there's more coming, so next week you'll have more, hopefully before the meeting, so hopefully we
Okay.
can approve 4.
okay.
So is the reports that J. Edward presented showed every town is different, the only change, which reflects the sentence that was taken out?
That's the only one I corrected, outside of maybe his name.
That was the only time?
I hadn't looked at
Yeah, I would wait then.
Okay.
them, so let's take a look at them. If we have further corrections for next week, we can approve them then, so. Today, what do we have, about 2 more sets outstanding besides
Yes.
these? Okay.
One was finished late today.
Okay. Okay. Under new business, the first thing we have, we put on there, we received, I guess via Frank or from Mike, got it from Frank, this Town of Westford, Town Classification Research Group report. We just thought we'd put it on the agenda. Does anybody have any comments, questions relative to the report? Anybody?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, John, please.
So just some comments about some of the things that it says in the report. First, the report says, and this is a quote, Northeastern University's Dukakis Center lists property tax rate as the number 9 in their list of the top 40 site selection criteria for businesses, behind issues like rent rates and access to talent, and in front of issues like clarity of permitting and crime rate. I just thought that was a little disingenuous, since those 3, the tax rate, issues of clarity, and permitting and crime rate, have pretty much the exact same rating. The report says small businesses would also see a large increase, but that's because they're using projections of 25 and 50% splits. I wanted to just point out that if you had a modest split tax rate, like for example 1.1, and a small commercial exemption, qualifying properties in Chelmsford would actually see a very small increase, measured in hundreds of dollars. Next, the report says, quote, some communities in the 1980s enacted a split tax rate in anticipation of future development of significant commercial properties. As the commercial space expanded, a split tax rate delivered significant benefit to residents. Just thought that was interesting. Next, the report survey results have a lot of mays when they were doing the residential and commercial pros and cons. They had a lot of statements that said may this, may that, with no supporting evidence. But there was one that I was glad was mentioned because I knew it would have to come up eventually. It says a split tax rate may increase residents' disposable income. Well, that's not a may, that's a definite. And one of the strongest relationships in economics is that if you give people more money to spend, they will spend more money. Whether or not residents who get a tax break will actually spend it in Chelmsford is a question, but they will spend more money. Next, this comes up periodically. They address the issue of fairness, as in somehow having a different rate for commercial property versus residential property is somehow unfair. And I always wonder when I hear that, why businesses don't advocate for paying the same income tax rate as individuals. The report says, quote, these members became convinced that the financial benefit to the residents was not worth the cost of a potentially hostile business climate. So the hostile, I guess I don't really get. It seems to me that would be up to the business community. There's no hostile climate in Billerica. And with respect to the worth of this, I mean, if you think you ask some of the residents who are housing burdened, they might think it was worth it. The report recommends eliminating the small commercial exemption. And so I did some experimenting with numbers because I thought it was interesting that they want to avoid a split tax rate, but they're recommending getting rid of the small commercial exemption. So using the numbers for Chelmsford, and using a property value of $550,000 for a commercial property. If we had a split tax rate of 1.1, their property taxes would go up by $988. If we had a small commercial exemption of 10% like Westford does and dropped it, that same property's taxes would go up by $938, almost the same amount. And then one more comparison, if we had both the commercial exemption of 10% and a split tax rate of 1.1, a small commercial property that qualified would actually see their taxes go down by $44. One more observation with respect to the report. One survey respondent said, quote, businesses increase the value of residential property in Westford and should be taxed at a lesser percentage. And so I'm not debating that businesses increase the value of residential property, but I do want to remind that the Community Development Director, Billerica, observed that housing is an amenity for attracting businesses. And the governor said that, in his opinion, the high cost of housing poses the most serious long-term hurdle to continued economic growth. And so I would argue that affordable residences increase the value of commercial properties. And then just some numbers comparing Westford and Chelmsford. The residential levy in Chelmsford is 81.6, Westford 86. Median income in Chelmsford, $102,000, $131,000 Westford. Those people with a household income below $50,000, 25% of households in Chelmsford, 16 in Westford. The percent of population 65 or greater, 18% in Chelmsford, only 12% in Westford. And then as far as ranking among the surrounding communities, the 33 communities with respect to the tax burden, the property tax burden, Chelmsford is number 5, the 5th highest, Westford is number 20. Those were my observations.
Okay. It'd be interesting to know who when they made the questionnaires and the comments from the residents, something more about who the people were. I don't even know about their committee and what kinds of positions, whether they were, the committee represented business interests, strictly residents, who was on the committee. So it's interesting to read.
One other thing, I'm sorry. I was hoping Frank might be here tonight because he would probably know, but I was at one point I was trying to follow their committee. But if you go to the town website, based on the agendas that they posted, they met twice in April, once in May, and once in June, and no other agendas are posted. So I didn't know what was going on there. And also I found out that there's a separate committee in Westford called the Senior Low Income and Disabled Tax Relief Committee. And it sounds like they're getting ready to make some proposals for a special town meeting, but details of which I don't know.
Okay. is of interest. Anybody else have any comments that they'd like to share?
So that last item that you had mentioned, John, that's something that any town and city could take advantage of, if you will, or bring before a town meeting?
Oh, the
senior-
senior low-income disabled tax relief?
Yes.
Towns can actually, in some sense, design their own exemptions, but you have to get it approved by not just the town, but the state legislature as well, a home rule petition. Some towns have done things like that. I think we mentioned that Somerville had a home rule petition to increase the residential exemption above the limit that's prescribed in the law. And then there was a town recently, I can't, the name of the town escapes me, who provided I believe it was a low-income exemption beyond what's allowed under the law.
And did that go through the state?
All those have to go through the state, yes.
So the state approved it?
Yes, in
Okay.
both those cases, yes.
Goes to show you how much power the cities and towns do have if they so choose to,
Like Somerville, yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, I guess I think it's of interest to see what they've done, and there's also the realization in the comparisons you've made that Westford is a different community than Chelmsford, so, you know, we can see how they approach the problem and think about how that may influence us. Anybody else have comments? No? Okay. Review of the public presentation that Mike is putting together for next week. Next week, we're having community input session here, 7 o'clock. And he prepared a brief presentation. Colleen, can you put his version up before my little chart?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what Mike has proposed we use, and what are the comments? I had some significant thoughts on changing it, but I'm okay with that page.
Actually, it'd probably be better if it said tax classification, but
Okay. You're right.
I'm just wondering if people would want to know what those three major options are. Should we?
Well, let's one at a time so we're okay with the first page. We'll add the word tax.
Sorry.
Okay. Why are we here? We have any?
Now, does that refer to us or the audience?
Yeah, good question.
Keep saying, why am I here with this?
And the why, to reduce the burdens. I don't think we have authority to reduce the burdens, so maybe we need a different wording on that. Why the tax classification committee? How would you?
So this is referring to the committee?
I assume it is. Do I have the draft he, I think that he had the same thing on last week on the draft he put there.
So this shouldn't be our mission, actually? Is that what it's saying? It is? In other words?
What I really mean is, why doesn't it just say, why a tax classification committee?
Okay.
I think what Mike put there kind of infers what the Board of Selectmen were asking us to do when he said to reduce residential property
I don't
tax
have a
burden.
problem with the rest of it.
But why not use the language that the Board of Selectmen gave us from the start, if he wants to, instead of inferring what they're looking for.
We should use that over the mission statement that we have, do you think?
Oh, the mission statement, I mean, that's what we agreed to, right? The mission, I don't think we ever formally voted on it, did
Never
we?
formally
really?
voted on it.
Yeah.
I think we did.
It's in the minutes.
That we
Okay,
voted
then,
on it?
We did.
Yeah, we voted on it? I thought
You
we
voted to
talked
approve
about
the
it.
minutes. I don't think actually.
Yeah,
voted on
I think we ended up coming up with something we could all agree upon. I thought we voted on it.
Okay.
I mean, the comment about actually, why a tax classification committee, omit the first sentence, leave the business about how tax bills have risen, and then the Board of Selectmen commission this group to investigate and educate on tax classification. I think that's more to the point. So suggest we omit the first sentence on that one? Everybody in agreement? Okay, I'm in agreement.
I think that's a good
I think it should
idea.
stay in there.
What?
To reduce the residential property tax burden, I think that that's one of the considerations apart, well, I said, I don't think it should just be the residential, I think it should be both. That we should be talking about both the business and the residential
Oh.
tax burdens, and put it that way. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I guess our purpose isn't to reduce it. Our purpose is to investigate and educate on tax classification, or perhaps we could add with the
Maybe
goal,
not
with the
take
goal of reducing the tax burden.
Or what about looking at the residential and the property tax burdens without the word reduce?
And that's in the mission statement,
Okay, let's,
Could you read the mission statement, please?
if I can find it.
The mission statement that we agreed to.
we came up with. What did I do with my version of this?
It says, purpose of Tax Classification Study Committee will be to review the use of tax classification regionally to identify any positive and negative consequences that the implementation of a split rate upon residential and commercial property owners may have, and specifically as may be proposed within the town of Chelmsford. Included will be an analysis of past splitting the rate by other comparable cities and towns with particular attention as to their initial percentage increase on commercial properties.
I don't think our final
Yeah,
mission
no, I don't
statement-
think it was
That's,
this long.
that's,
This was the
that's,
initial.
that's the Board of Selectmen.
You,
mission
you
statement.
have,
I can find it.
Okay, great.
Talking until I do.
Yeah, I think it was much more succinct, remember?
it was much more succinct. It was about 2 sentences by the time we
Yeah,
finished.
and I couldn't find what the real 2 sentences was, so.
Yeah, I think it's in the minutes, though. So the feeling is that
Which
would
really
be,
means nothing.
Well,
okay.
and then the question is, do we need that page at all? Right.
Putting our mission, the mission statement in there. I mean, I was okay with it, eliminating the first sentence and just to investigate and educate on tax classification. That's our purpose. And
Okay.
investigating it is
Yeah,
part of
okay.
reducing, and the motivation has to do with the fact that tax bills have increased, have compounded at this rate. Colleen,
I can read it to you, because this took you guys a long time to come up with.
where is it?
It's in the second meeting minutes,
The second meeting, which is, do you have the
Um,
date?
6/18.
Okay.
And the committee went through, then went into a review of the mission statements. After much discussion, this is what you came up with. The purpose of Tax Classification Study Committee will be to review the options available to relieve local real estate tax burden in Chelmsford. The committee will attempt to review and assess such options objectively insofar as possible to recommend various courses of action for the Board of Selectmen to consider when deciding whether to adopt a uniform or split tax rate or any other measure of tax relief. And there was a vote. Mary Franz made a motion to accept this mission statement as amended, and Dan Burke seconded, and it was unanimous.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
that's why we're,
Yep.
why tax classification, okay.
That's
Next
what we have
page.
here.
So
That's-
anyway, are we going to replace that with
That would be my recommendation to Mike. We in agreement on that?
I think you need
Yeah.
this in there. I think if you take out the sentence you wanted to take out to, that I objected to, and have the rest of it in there, that's a different story. I think that needs to be in there.
What needs to be in there?
Since 2000.
Oh, that
Blah,
part.
blah, blah, yeah.
Well, we could make like an addendum
Okay,
statement, but I think if you did that, I think you should leave out the last sentence as well,
okay.
because we've already said that.
I will
Yeah.
give Mike our input and let him.
So we're
Okay,
taking out the first sentence,
And the last
and we're
sentence.
taking out the last sentence, and we're putting in
Mission statement.
the mission statement.
Okay.
So where are we adding this on the mission statement?
Should be below.
No, this isn't going to be added, it's just going to be lower down on the page. Just, I don't know, an
Should it be another
addendum,
page?
not an addendum, not in a, just
Should it be
another
another page?
thought.
It could be not really a footnote, but kind of a sub-bullet, kind of.
It'll be
How do you-
there, be a second paragraph on the page. I mean,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only a sentence.
it's 2 sentences, so.
Two.
And it gets at the issue of looking into the residential and commercial tax burden. So that's part of the mission statement as you read it, so. Okay, let's go on to what is classification, that page, do we have? And I agree with you. You know, I want to suggest that the first sentence, it's not a very clear sentence that we put in the first sentence. There was a definition on the history as to why legislature adopted it. It says classification to allow cities and towns to manage the levy share relationship between residential and commercial industrial to manage the relationship between the levy shares. And I would suggest that we change the first sentence to classification is a series of local options which allows cities and towns to manage the levy share relationship between residential and commercial.
That may have been the original intent, but I think it's going beyond that. I mean, communities do it for various different reasons.
There are reasons, but it allows, that's what it allows. And when he's talking about options, this allows us to manage the relationships. Why the communities choose to do it may be something else, but the legislation allows this to happen. And that's what the options are. They allow us to manage that relationship.
But they allow it for whatever reason we decide to use it for.
We're not saying why they allow it. We're just saying this is what tax classification is. It's the options which allow this, which allow us to manage that relationship.
But I don't see that as being relevant, and more so even implying something that we might be using that particular reason to.
This is, the title of this is what is classification? I'm trying to give a definition for what it is.
Well,
I thought we already had one.
What is your definition? A series of local options?
Yeah, and then list the options, which he does in the following
what's
subsequent. You need to list the
next
options,
page has it.
Well, they come in the next 3 pages.
but they should be listed here, I think.
Oh, okay. Now I see.
Okay.
I think that makes it too busy.
What, the sentence I want to put in?
No. A whole page for singular,
Well,
split,
let's get to
et cetera.
let's get to this page first. I guess if,
I think if we put what you want in there, Mary, that we should know where it came from originally, like the chapter and the,
it is, I don't know that it comes
I
from
don't either.
anywhere.
Well-
This is the background and the implementation, and it just sort of, to me, it just describes what tax classification does, why it allows the interrelationship, the relationship between us to adjust that relationship. We can leave it as it is, if you want to just put the 3 major options and list them, single tax rate, split tax rate, residential exemption, and small commercial exemption.
well, I have a
Those
question.
I think those are the 3 options he's talking about.
I have a question about the word classification itself. Does that in itself mean split?
No,
If there's a classification?
No, I think
So-
split can be single or,
Right.
classification can be single
Single or-
or split.
Okay.
Classification is what the state allows now, and they have for decades now, to classify different properties based on residential, commercial, industrial property. That's what classification refers to.
Okay.
And then now you have the ability to
Yeah,
split the rate among different classes.
the whole term is sort of ambiguous, because you're right, classification refers to being able to designate the different kinds of property into different categories. What they did in 78 allows us to maneuver the categories using different tax rates, so. Okay, where are we on this page? The
I like what you're saying. I think-
And the opinion is to list the three options on this page?
Yes.
3 bullets, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you're sitting in the audience, you've never been here before, and we tell them there are 3 options,
Yeah,
well,
Right.
what are the options?
okay. And the paragraph, I think
That's
that's.
fine, I like that.
That's important, especially the sentence that it's not a method for raising additional revenue. Okay.
By the way, has anybody been checking the TV ratings on these meetings? Are we
No.
doing well in
I
the
don't know.
Nielsen polls?
I don't know, but I know
Tell you
there are
how many
people that
views you got.
watch, so.
You can.
From all 12 people that watch,
There are
my
people
neighborhood.
Okay. Now, here's where I have some major suggestions, because, and I don't know if you read the letter Tom sent to us, his comments.
yes, I've read it.
And and I agree with him wanting all the charts. I don't
I do too.
agree with him.
I prefer not to discuss it until he's here.
That's fine.
Where's this paper I gave you?
But I think he was saying it relative to this presentation, that his view.
I agree.
My feeling on this was, and I've got about 4 of his following sheets to say omit, is this page that says split or single tax rate. He's trying to describe how we calculate some of these things and what it does. And I put together, and, well, I'll pass this out. I made copies. And 1, 2, 3 this way here. My thought initially was to put that in there someplace, but, and get rid of some of the other charts. But actually, my thought right now is to start out with a page that says single tax rate. And simply just, because maybe people don't even know how we calculate a tax rate. And say a single tax rate, and so on this page, instead of saying split or single, just say single tax rate. A single tax rate is set by, et cetera. This gives us a single tax rate. And then put this little chart, or what I have on the first half of the page, that shows how it's done.
Yes.
And that shows how it's done. In fact, I'd even add another line. Instead of saying single tax rate equals total levy divided by total assessed value equals, want to go tax rate, and then put another line, single tax rate, and then put the numbers in to show the division and how you get to the single tax rate. And that would be that page on single tax rate. Then do another page on split tax rate, where you take what he has on the bottom of this, and he's repeating in what he had in here about splitting the tax rate shifts. He's got that in the first 2 sentences here. So I would just say splitting the tax rate shifts by the adopted percentage, some of the tax burden borne by residential property, class 2, commercial, industrial, personal. Put the rest of that, what he has in there on the split rate, and then put this example to show how it works, the bottom half of what I have here.
So just get rid of the first paragraph, use the rest for the split,
Yeah.
explaining the split, and also your information.
And then that information which shows, and in fact, you can talk about it, you can show how the required levy changes based on the split you choose, and then how you calculate the 2 separate tax rates. Get rid of all the other charts on this.
I think that's fine.
That would be my preference.
What about the chart, the next page chart?
I would get rid of it.
Which
I
chart?
mean, this one.
Yeah, that one, yeah.
That one, because I have all that information. Instead of breaking out commercial, industrial, personal property, I combine them together into one group, because when we talk about a split tax rate, we're talking about two groups. And so show the calculation for the two groups. It just simplifies it to me.
So if you have 2 pages, one single, one split.
One has to do with single tax rate, one has to do with describing the split tax rate and how you calculate it.
You show it now?
Yeah, I passed it out to everyone, we put it up on the screen. So I would make a statement about single tax rate, show how it's calculated, then have a next page on a split tax rate with all that information that Mike has there on the split tax rate, and then show how it's calculated. I mean, he describes it in words, but it's, you know, for people that aren't.
So you're kind of talking about replacing 2 sheets with 2 different sheets,
I would-
arranged the way you described it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's good to have the numbers plus the narrative, because people learn differently.
He's got,
But
what he
this-
says is split and single on one page. I'm doing one page with single, and with half of that my chart,
Yep.
and one page on split with the bottom half of that chart.
I definitely like this presentation better than
Yes.
this one.
Yes, ditto.
Okay.
And then then what he has, okay, so we in agreement with that?
Yeah.
It's gonna be major editing. But I just looked at all the charts, and the next 2 pages I would just omit.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
2 pages?
Great.
Yes.
Okay, Colleen, can you go back to what Mike had?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so
Eliminate
replace that with the 2 little charts that I have, because
that.
this one I could get rid of.
That one I would not eliminate, because that's the one that tells people, well, okay, I've got some sense for what the valuation of my property is, so this is going to tell me what's going to happen to my property. I mean, showing how the calculations work is nice, but people really care about what's going to happen to their property. This gives them more of a sense of that than showing them how the calculations are done.
Well,
Nobody's going to be doing their own calculations.
I showed them how because he did it in words, and to me it's...
I agree with that. I'm just saying, I don't think you can get rid of this one. What you did doesn't,
Okay, I won't argue that. I would get rid of it, but I
Well,
won't argue.
I'd like to argue that. And I'm trying to figure out how.
I wouldn't argue it,
I
because
think it sounded like me.
I got asked this today.
well,
I got asked this question this morning before I saw Mike's thing.
You said,
And I said, I can't answer that, because I couldn't give them the numbers that they wanted to see on paper, because I said, I don't have it
Okay.
in front of me. But this lays it out beautifully compared to, in
okay,
retrospect to what the person asked me on the phone today.
okay, if you think that...
All I'm thinking,
just bring a laptop around with you with the spreadsheet all set up, and
I hadn't gotten out
Okay.
of bed yet.
Okay, I'll
But I think my issue is with these numbers, and it makes it very clear, but there's just a lot of explanation behind each of these columns that are not spelled out, and I think that could be misleading.
well, I'm assuming that Mike will clarify that when he's presenting. What is res, for example? Is that?
Well,
Well,
okay, I'll, you know, it's there, and I guess if we're putting a packet together that people are taking home, I'm not certain, and they're sitting there and they look for their house, I guess they can get a feeling for that. What about the graph?
no.
I could lose the graphs.
Yes, okay, omit that. Okay.
I kind of like the graft, I hate to tell you that, but let me tell you why.
Why?
Because you're looking, I didn't like it when I first saw it, until I started reading the difference on what it meant. And then it clicked, and it clicked a little different. So one is a split on the average residence, and then the other's a split on the businesses. And it does show a difference, and I think they need to see that difference. I think that helps. You think it's gonna be, you've got it that way, but look at it this way. It makes a difference. You don't think so?
Well, first of all, it's based on historical data, and the future, this is not based on history. I mean, it could be different in the future. And I think all they really need to know is, okay, well, for 1 year, this is what's going to happen. You know, they can make their own projections as to what that might mean over time.
Okay. All right, we'll get rid of that one.
Well, see what Mike thinks.
Does everybody else feel that we ought to get rid of that, the graph?
What's it?
You feel this sheet with the graphs, that one we ought to get rid of?
I'd get rid of it.
Okay. Okay. That's a majority. Okay, we're on to the residential exemption. My only issue here had to do with a rewording of, moving sentences around. It wasn't to eliminate any of the sentences, but it was to, I guess what I wanted to say is that sentence that says, I guess, let me read it the way it makes more sense to me. Residential exemption shifts the tax burden from lower value properties to higher value properties and to non-resident occupied properties. This shift is only within the residential class. CIP properties are unaffected. First paragraph. Second paragraph. If adopted, the residential exemption may be up to 35% of the average assessed value of all parcels. And then adopting the residential exemption, et cetera, and the rest of it as it is. So that, what he has is that middle sentence I would put down in the part of the second paragraph, effectively. I would move it to the second paragraph.
Yep.
It makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
One sort of talks in general about what it is, and then the next paragraph says what happens if you adopt it. All the sentences are there.
So would you put it at the end of the second paragraph?
I would take this, no, I guess what I did, I don't know, I'll let him decide. The second sentence in the current first paragraph, I would put as the first sentence in the second paragraph and leave everything else the same. And then, are we, any further discussion? Is there any, what are the feelings about that change?
Oh, I like that change.
Yeah, okay. Okay, done with that page.
Oh, I want to look at the third paragraph.
Oh, okay.
Policy.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's right.
I'm okay with the rest of it.
I guess actually now that I read it carefully, I'm a little concerned about the third paragraph where it
Okay.
says that reduces the taxes paid by homeowners with moderately valued properties. First of all, moderately is
Relative
somewhat
to,
ambiguous, but I don't think it's even necessary. I think you could eliminate that statement and just observe that it shifts the tax burden away from lower valued properties to higher valued properties.
okay.
Yes.
So you would say the higher rate shifts the tax burden away from, leave out the,
Yeah, just this higher rate creates a shift within the residential class that shifts the tax
Okay.
burden away from. Just
Okay.
eliminate that phrase there.
Yes.
okay.
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 Should the second paragraph be the third paragraph? Does it, or does it not matter? I'm thinking that as we have it, the second paragraph explains the paragraph below it. Maybe
Well,
it's just too small.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, with those changes, are we okay on that page? Then in my attempt to get rid of charts, I'd get rid of the next 2 pages.
I would agree.
I think, again, this is a chart, I would get rid of the bottom part because it's irrelevant, there's no effect on CIP properties, but this gives, owners of residential properties, a clear view of what's going to happen to them, depending upon the valuation of their property. I might pick different numbers than the numbers here. He might just use the numbers that I had for specific reasons, but, put 200, 300, 400, 500,000, and you can see, okay, if my property's worth a certain amount, what kind of difference is this going to make for me? Is my property taxes going to go up or down? By how much? So I think the numbers are important. This is what gives the audience a real feel for what's going to happen to them.
I think you're right. If we're going to keep the other chart in, I think this would explain it a lot further.
But the bottom half of it, get rid
But
of
the
it.
CIP, no.
Get rid of it.
Yeah. But the second page, the next page, I think we should keep having the same thought process.
The bottom. Okay.
Yeah, because this page is effectively for homeowners.
Yeah.
The next page is for owners of rental properties and people who rent from owners of rental properties.
Okay. Give me the justification for keeping the next page in.
This one?
No, yes, that one.
Yeah, to illustrate that this is going to have what some may consider to be a significant impact on rental properties. I mean, he does say there's going to be a shift to residential parcels. He does say it's going to be involve a shift to rental properties, but this actually illustrates it. So if you live in a property where you're renting, you can see, if it's a 1-unit property, it could go up by quite a bit. If it's a larger property, maybe not as much.
I think the rental property should be in the title of that page.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me put it this way, directly. If I was just looking at the previous table, I might think residential exemption. That seems like it might be a pretty good idea. But then I look at this table and I think, not so much.
Okay. Last page. Small commercial exemption. I don't have any problems with this one.
My only comment would be, if nothing, to be consistent, this should be an example, another table. Because again, now the commercial property owners are going to want to see, okay, if I'm a qualifying small commercial property, what's this going to save me? If I'm a non-qualifying commercial property, what's this going to cost me? The property owners deserve to know those numbers as well.
I agree.
In that case, there's no reason to have any residential numbers, just the commercial numbers.
Looks like the bottom half of that previous
Yeah,
page is what he was trying to get at,
Yeah,
but it
maybe.
didn't show it. Yeah, okay. Okay.
I'll just make one other comment, because I know I've been involved in this from the perspective of where Mike's going to be in this. I think the changes we made tonight are good changes, but Mike needs to be comfortable with them. Because
Yeah,
if he's going to do the presentation,
I
he needs to be
understand,
comfortable.
I understand. I will
Make him comfortable.
make him comfortable with it.
I think he had a question on whether we should have the other exemptions noted as well, the 9 exemptions, briefly, in a slide maybe?
Yeah, he originally had that in, what he just gave to us last week was, I have that. What did he call them? I don't know
The
where.
last,
Here. Yeah, I didn't understand what he had said on there. There are other shifts which can be adopted. None are in widespread use or likely to make any significant differences. What other shifts is he talking about?
Yeah, they're not shifts.
Any others?
He just, where does he say that?
Well, in the version he had last
Oh,
week,
okay.
that he didn't
okay.
include in the version today.
Yeah, there are other exemptions.
There are exemption,
But I don't, yeah.
I think that apply, maybe just a statement that can be said that there are exemptions available that apply to individuals and not to the to the,
I think he's saying these three words being the same thing, just depending upon how you look at it.
anyway.
But I think there should be something in there.
You think there should be something on,
So people understand that these are ways that they could reduce their residential.
If nothing else, it's another opportunity for us to inform people of these exemptions that they may qualify for.
Yes.
They send the information out with the taxes once a year. It's on the town website in a couple of places, but one more opportunity for people to learn about these exemptions.
okay. So just add a statement relative to that?
Add the nine,
How
the
many
headings of the
of them are there?
nine exemptions. And then we could say, for more information, contact.
Okay. 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 Are we sort of set on that?
As long as he is.
Committee member presentations, questions. Anybody have anything to share with us tonight?
I have a couple of things.
Okay.
So just first of all, the spreadsheet that allows you to combine all three issues that we're addressing, the split tax rate and the residential and commercial exemptions. I found a bug, mistake in the spreadsheet. I sent it to Mike, and I'm glad to see he actually used the fixed spreadsheet in preparing his presentation. But if you are using the spreadsheet to illustrate what would happen with the residential exemption, it doesn't work properly. It does now, the version that I fixed. So if you need the fixed version, just send an email to Mike or myself.
Did that ever get to us?
No, I sent it to Mike, and I sent it to Mike during the week.
And he didn't.
Since the last meeting, and it
give
hasn't
to
been
us.
passed on.
Okay.
But he did get it because he did use it, it
Okay.
would appear.
But we don't.
So again, if anybody wants to project what would happen with the residential exemption, the current spreadsheet that you have won't do it properly.
Okay.
And then, and this is in response to a presentation we had last week from the town of Worcester Research Bureau. I finally got a chance to actually carefully read Passing the Bucks, Ending the Tug of War among Worcester Taxpayers, which I thought was a nicely done report. I just wanted to highlight some things that they said in that report. This is a direct quote. Sensitivity to extreme tax changes. And then they talk about industrial properties more than any other class are negatively impacted by extreme tax rate changes. My emphasis on extreme, but I think it makes the point that I think in general you might want to avoid extreme tax changes. The Research Bureau, this is again a quote, the Research Bureau was not able to isolate direct evidence of tax-induced negative growth in Worcester. Now another quote, a change in tax rates correlates to a change in property values at the extremes. And they had actually a graph that showed this. However, they go on to say there is no absolute causality that property tax rates impact property values, except at the extremes. Again, I would be careful about extremes. Another quote, the Research Bureau was not able to separate out the potential impact of broader economic downturns from the impact of tax rates. Again, it's a complicated world. It's tough to figure out what's causing things to happen. Another quote, tax rates appear to have little correlation to changes in employment. And then later they say employment is tied to larger national trends, is largely unaffected by normal municipal tax rate shifts. Another quote makes an important point. Renters in particular have borne a greater burden on income relative to homeowners, which suggests that increases in residential property taxes may have greater impact on renters relative to homeowners. Another quote, tax revenue is often spent to maintain public infrastructure and services, for example, roads, public utilities, and education, that directly or indirectly have an impact on an employer's ability to perform its daily operations. Higher levels of per capita expenditures devoted to primary and secondary education, fire and police protection, highways, water utilities and sewerage, and solid waste management all correspond to greater numbers of businesses being established over time. So if you read the report, I think these are some of the key points. Worcester has had a very difficult transition to the new 21st century economy. They have a very large base of tax-exempt properties, which hinders their tax collection efforts. Their split tax rate was at the max 1.75, but it varies from year to year. They, as was mentioned last week, kind of stand out. Actually, it was mentioned in the context of Leominster and Sturbridge, but Worcester's in the same boat. Very few of their surrounding communities have a split tax rate. Only 1 out of their 9 Tier 1 communities, only 1 out of their 14 Tier 2 communities. And they note that the vote of the tax rate is, quote, arbitrary and unpredictable. Unpredictable is not a good thing for businesses. And so I guess when you're reading their report, again, I think it's well done, but you have to kind of make a leap from what they say to their recommendation of lowering and eventually eliminating the split tax rate. And I think to understand that, you just need to know that this is an organization, the Worcester Research Bureau, that was created by the business community, is funded by the business community, and is run by the business community. All 13 members of the executive committee come from the Worcester business community. So it makes sense that they would advocate for that.
And after this weekend, they are shining. So
We'll see.
I rest my case. Well, I bet you they do. I
What?
mean, I think that they're going to get a lot out of the Red Sox
better.
and the hotels that are coming in and the revenue that's going to start coming in and the shops that are going to change.
They better. $100 million, was it?
Yeah.
About right?
I will.
Oh, just one other quick thing.
Yep,
Just
go
I
ahead.
don't want to focus on this or elaborate on it, but we had the presentation from Leominster last week,
Yeah.
which was interesting, and it told a very interesting story about fiscal discipline. The relevance to Chelmsford escaped me, but whenever I hear about this fiscal discipline stuff, it makes me wonder. I just did a little bit of checking, and I'll just say that everything is not roses in Leominster. They have some issues that they are dealing with.
Okay. You're not going to tell us what their issues are?
If you want, I can. If you want.
You know, any general?
Again, I don't know how relevant this is, but I can. So out of 302 Massachusetts communities, Leominster has the 279th highest crime rate. So they're one of the top crime rate places in by the way, Chelmsford's 127.
Okay.
They have 8 public schools that are rated by greatschools.org. 2 are rated average, 6 below average. For Chelmsford, by the way, it's 4 above average and 3 average. And then there's this website called Wallet Hub that ranks cities to give people advice as to where they might want to move to. And out of 86 communities that they rank, Leominster ranks 72nd on education, health and safety, and 65th on socioeconomics, which includes factors like poverty, unemployment, wealth gaps, and foreclosures.
Where does Chelmsford stand?
That one, I don't think I don't think Chelmsford was in the
Wasn't
list.
on the priority.
Maybe they were, I don't know.
It certainly was an interesting presentation on the fiscal discipline for the town and
Yeah.
how they do their finances. And
Yeah.
I suppose you might be arguing, or one might argue, hearing those statistics, that maybe they're not spending adequately on education or something. You can't say that.
I can't say that. No, I can't jump to that conclusion.
Yeah, but
it makes
know,
you wonder.
my feeling, and as I've said, my daughter lives in Leominster, and they live in a new area, so it's it's quite nice. But going through the town, it's a town that I think of more in the same, not certainly in the category of Chelmsford in that it's a small city, more akin to, I'm sure, Lowell, Fitchburg, the old mill towns, and Leominster isn't. I don't think it's a mill town, but it wasn't more of an industrial town. And he talked about that last week too. So it's a different caliber of town, I would say. But interesting to hear how they approach things. Anyone else have anything? You're gonna.
Mr. Power?
Okay, let me bring that up relative to our upcoming
Okay.
meetings. That's where
Just the fact that the flyer for the open session next week has been distributed in the media, and at the library, Frank went to the library and to the senior center and left quite a few copies at each location.
Thank you.
And letters went
Oh, yes,
to the,
Town
it was
reps.
emails?
yes,
I know I saw something, email, okay. To town reps.
through the clerk's office. Very nice.
Okay.
I didn't get one.
Pardon?
I didn't see one. When did it come?
Your town meeting rep?
Oh, yes, I did. I'm sorry. I did.
Good.
Okay. Okay, moving right along.
Well, before we move on, I just
Okay.
want to thank you for doing it. It was a great job.
You're welcome.
It looks good. Thought you should get credit for it.
To the point.
Moving right along, old business, upcoming meeting dates and topics. We will not be meeting on September 4th. That's primary election day, and can't have meetings of this sort on that date. So we will not be meeting that day. Now, we have an issue around, there's another speaker that you were arranging, Sheila? Tell us about that.
Mr. John Power, he is a partner, primary partner of Farley White. They own properties in Boston, Burlington, Billerica. Chelmsford, it's at 150 Apollo Drive. And Mr. Diggs had suggested that possibly we could connect with him. He was very nice and returned my call this morning, and he would be very interested to speak with us. He thinks that he's not a person to speak about the tax ramifications, appraisals, et cetera, and so I reassured him that we did have somebody already speak to us about that. But he thinks, and it sounds like he really can add a lot of insight and perspective into the commercial industrial area of the real estate. He's had very positive experiences in Chelmsford for the years that he's been here. And he would be happy to come next week or any other week after that. Don't know what his schedule is after next week, so I would like to get back to him as soon as possible. I don't know what your thoughts of him being at the session next week would be. Mike
Happens if we
wondered
get
if
a-
that might not be a good week because he would take more time probably than.
The only issue being with no meeting then the following week, that would delay him until would be
11th.
the 11th of September, and then we're pushing the final report deadlines.
But what happens if we get a lot of people next week?
Well, that's why it's up for discussion and what people feel.
I'm hoping
Will there be a lot of
come.
people next week? I mean, I'm sure if he comes, and it will take
It'll take a half hour, 40
Yeah,
minutes.
that's
Do
right.
we want to take it away from the public? If we've said to them, come and this is your session and you can ask questions and we're going to give you a demonstration of what we're doing, and I don't know. I'm thinking that it might not be such a great idea to have them at that time.
Those people who do come are going to expect a
Okay.
input session and be able to ask questions starting at 7 o'clock.
Okay. So the feeling is we should schedule him
For
for the
11th,
11th of September, if he can come.
and if not, the 18th. Is it? Okay
I
to draw
guess
it
so,
out till
I
then?
guess so. That the preference would be not to schedule him for next week, and to schedule him for as soon as he can come after that.
And if
Hopefully,
nobody shows up next week, we'll be out early.
that's right, just like tonight. Okay,
But I would not do it for next week. I really don't think that's fair.
okay. If that's the feeling of the committee, we will delay him until you'll get back in touch with him?
I will.
Okay, I hope he can come on the 11th of September. September, my goodness. I'm going to do a PSA while I've got it. We're not meeting on the 4th because of the election. I'm just going to plug in because of an election coming up, and the League of Women Voters of Chelmsford and a number of other groups are having a candidates forum for the 3rd Congressional District race in the next Monday night, 7 o'clock at the high school auditorium. So we don't expect the Republican candidate. He's all alone in his primary, but there are 10 people in the Democratic primary. So anybody who's interested in finding out about the 10 candidates, please come. Plenty of room
Is it the PAC Center?
at the PAC.
PAC, okay.
There was a similar forum in Concord about a month ago, and they turned people away.
Wow.
We went to one at UMass Lowell about 2 months ago, and it was two different debates. They broke the candidates up into two
Yeah.
groups, and the second group, it was packed.
Yeah, well, and they had a facility for 200 when they did this in Concord about a month ago, and they turned about 100 people away. So we think having it in the PAC where we can house up to 1,000 people should be big enough. I'm not really expecting 1,000, but we're hoping to get a good number.
And hopefully it'll improve the turnout, which is probably going to be pretty low, but
We'll
hopefully
see.
it'll improve it.
Anyway, that's my little public service announcement while we're talking about elections. Action items. Oh, public comments. Does the public have anything to say?
Nothing tonight.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Harrington? Okay. Open items, prior meetings, anything from, I don't know what Mike talks about under prior meetings. What goes under there? Nothing? Okay. So, anything new that we've come up with tonight? Nothing except to schedule Mr. Power in September.
And you're going to give the input on the
And
presentation to
input
Mike?
on the presentation. I will get back to Mike on that.
And again, if anybody wants an update on the spreadsheet, you can send me an email.
Okay. Anything else?
The format for next week, is this going to be, is there any parameter to the people that get up that Mike should initiate at the beginning? Like, is there a 3-minute time? Is there a 3-question limit?
I think that depends on if there's 3 people or 300.
I mean, I wouldn't want somebody to go on forever. I mean, it's nice to have questions, but sometimes it gets redundant.
Yep.
So that's just my thought. Wondering if there could be.
Why don't we say if somebody gets up, asks a question, the next, 4 people down asks the same question, that question has already been answered is all that Mike has to say.
Well,
Can you do that?
I'm willing to say let Mike set the parameters,
Yeah.
and some of it will have to do with how many people are in the room when we walk in for the meeting, and certainly if there are a lot of people, limiting their time would be reasonable, it seems to me, to give everybody a chance. And I think that's at his discretion next week, but we can make our views known.
Not that we want to shut anybody out, just that we don't want to spend the time on something that's already been said or that gets out of control.
Okay.
But that's what this is for. It's to hear the people in Chelmsford, to have them ask questions so that they understand a little bit better possibly why they voted the way they did the last election. I think that's really the huge intent of this committee, is to try to educate as much as we can so that the community.
I'm not sure a lot of people understood what they were really voting for when they voted. I think they thought that they were voting and all the taxes were going to just disappear. I really think some of them did.
Non-binding.
Well,
I didn't see that word.
I'm sure that, I'll admit, I didn't even when you had this article, the question about a small commercial exemption. Should we implement it if you know, I had no idea how it worked. Now I understand how it works and what it means. And to the pluses and minuses, who the winners and losers are if it's adopted in any of these cases. So yeah, that's our intent. So anything else that needs to go forward for next week? Nothing? Okay. There's no press.
Move to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:07.
Wow.